Hey guys, welcome in. My name is Beans. Today, I'm going to be going over how to make some spell jars. I have these tiny little baby jars, super cute, and I'm going to be making a couple of different spell jars. Okay, I'm going to be making a protection one, I'm going to be making a grounding one, and I'm also going to be making a healing one. All right. So when you first start with doing any spell work, it doesn't matter what spell work you're doing, whether it's candle magic, sigil magic, spell work in general, you want to start off with, what is this spell for? What is the purpose? What am I trying to do? What am I trying to accomplish? Okay, so that way you can have a focus and you can center everything you want around that. So what I recommend is to write down what you want to happen. Write down why you're doing this spell, what its purpose is. And when you're writing this down, the more specific you are, the more detailed you are, the better it is. Okay, it gives your spell work just a lot more power, a lot more energy. So the more detail, the better. Okay, I know this only says protection, but this is just for demonstration purposes, and I already have my specifics written down over somewhere. Okay, the next thing you want to do is, you could do a couple of different things for this step. Okay, and it's get the ingredients that you want to use in your spell work. Some people like to use different things. Some people like to use herbs. Some people like to use crystals. Some people like to work with sigils specifically. Because we are doing spell jars, we need things that we can put in this tiny bottle, right? So I'm looking for herbs, tiny crystals, things that will fit in here. All right, so I'm going to use a couple of different things. I would use a sigil. I might not this time. So when figuring out what you want to do, you can either do one of two things. You can take your defined list of what your spell is going to do, and you can find things that fit that category. You can be like, okay, what are some things that embody the properties of protection, and look it up and then get those things. Or you can work with what you already have, which is one of my favorite things to do. I will look through, rummage through anything and everything that I currently already own, and I'm like, all right, what is the property of this again, and does it fit the spell that I'm trying to do? So I'm going to be using a whole bunch of stuff that I already have around my house, in that way, shape, and form. Okay, the next thing you want to do is, you want to prep your area before you start touching the ingredients, before you start like really getting the juices flowing. You want to make sure that your area is nice and clean, the energy is right. So whatever space you're going to be working in, I recommend clean it. Now, you don't have to, but it just helps. It really does just help let you stay focused, curate that energy, and make the energy that much stronger. Once you've cleaned it, you then cleanse it. Just in case there's any residual energy, just in case you don't want any other energy to mix in with the energy that you're working with. Let's say you're doing a protection spell, right? The last thing you did was like a love spell. You don't want that love spell energy to mix in with this protection spell energy. So it just helps if you do a nice good cleanse to start from scratch. Okay, and then you're gonna set the mood. You're gonna light whatever candles you need if you want to. You don't have to. Get your stuff out, whatever herbs, whatever crystals you're using, put it in that space that you're going to be working in, so that way you don't last minute have to be like, oh dang, I forgot this. It helps if it's all right there in that space. Whatever tools you're working with, it's also a nice idea to make sure that those are clean. You could also cleanse them, but that's not a necessity. It's just nice to do. It also helps get the energy right. It also helps make sure that you're focused and you're not wandering about other things. So cleaning, cleansing, putting out anything that you're going to be using is especially nice. Now, if you're going to be using some stuff where it's like, all right, I know I have this, but let's say it's in my backyard. Let's say I have something that I saw around the neighborhood, a specific flower, a specific tree branch that I want to use. that before you start the spell work is also when you would go and get that ingredient, you know? Like that's the time when you go and get those ingredients and be like, let me make sure I have everything that I want to use and need for this spell. Okay? So I'm going to do my stuff. I'm going to get my stuff ready, get all of my ingredients, and then I'm going to come back and we are going to get started on the spell work, okay? So, so I am back with my tiny little spell jar. This is grounding, and because a lot of the things that I needed were outside in the outdoors, I didn't record it. And what I did was, as I saw what I needed, I just put it in the jar. So I have dirt, trees, leaves. I put some crystals in here. I put tiger's eye and red jasper in here. So the reasoning for all of that is this is a grounding and centering jar, right? The best way to ground and center is to simply be outside in nature, to simply just touch grass, feel the ground, be with the trees. So I really wanted to incorporate a lot of those properties in here, which is why a lot of nature is in this jar, you know. And then I also had some crystals that I knew would fit in here. So just to double check, I researched the properties of tiger's eye because I haven't researched it in a while, and it has that strengthening, grounding vibes that I wanted. And the red jasper has resilience along with grounding and strengthening. So I added that in here too because I feel like those are important properties to incorporate in all of this. Now, what I'm also going to add in here is a couple of drops of lavender to just bring in some clarity, some peace, some just calming, because a lot of the times when people are ungrounded and uncentered, it's because they're restless. It's because they cannot simply rest and calm and relax. So along with those grounding vibes, I'm also going to be putting in some peaceful tranquility type vibes in here too. So that's what we have for this. When I was trying to figure out what I want to put in my spell jars, like I said, write it down, right? I wrote everything down here. I was like, okay, what am I going to do for my protection? What am I going to do for my grounding? And I saw the herbs and ingredients that I have, and I was like, let me just pick what I want, you know, and I wrote it down so that way I know, hey, this is what I'm planning to use, this is what I'm doing. It helps when you write things down to keep you more on track. I didn't even use everything that I had wrote down because I forgot that these jars were tiny. And if these jars were bigger, what I would do is what I wrote down for what I want this spell to do, I'd rip it out and I'd fold it up and I'd also put it in the jar just to help give it more focus, more direction, and those types of things. And because I am not doing that, and I also usually when I put things into jars, you know, as I'm putting it in, I will like to say what it's going in there for, you know. And I didn't do that because a lot of the things that I got were outside. I'm going to put my spell jar on my altar to charge it, just to make sure it's good, to make sure it's solid, just to make sure it's doing what it has to do. And while I charge it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it on top of what I wrote down. You know, I'm going to be like, light a candle. It doesn't even have to be a special candle. It could be plain white Jane candle. It could be a tea light candle, really. I'm going to set that on top of it, light the candle, and just ask my spirit guides and ancestors to help charge this spell jar for me, is what that is. And you're going to see me basically do the same thing with the other spell jars that I'm going to do, but I'm also going to go into detail about, hey, what did I put in these spell jars? So let's move on to the next spell jar that I made. So for my protection jar that I have made right here, like I said, I took a lot of these things from like just outside, so I didn't record me taking it. But what is in here specifically, this is a protection jar for a place. So I grabbed some things from said place, like dirt, trees, those types of things that were around the place. It also has pepper, onion, garlic, and chili pepper flakes in here, you know, just to add a little bit of spice. And the last thing that is also in here is, and I don't know if you can see it, it's a piece of pine cone, you know, that falls from the trees. It's a little piece of that because that also has some protective qualities. Now, like I said, it's a good idea to just charge these up when you make them, just to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to do. You can ask your spirit guides, ask your ancestors to, like, hey, help me charge this, help me give it the energy. You could use your own energy if you want to, but that gets incredibly draining really fast, especially if you're doing spells back to back to back. So if it's a big working, you might want to ask for help from your spirit guides. If you're doing a lot of spells all at once, you also might want to ask for help from your spirit guides. But I don't usually recommend doing too many spells back to back, just because it's incredibly draining, you know. But if it's something tiny like this, you can absolutely use your own energy for sure. And one of the ways that you can use this is you can hold it in your hands and just give it that energy, meditate with it a little bit. I'm a fan of putting things on my altar and just lighting a candle and just being like, spirit guides, infuse the energy, please, you know, because I get way too distracted. I get way too busy doing everything and anything. So it just helps me be able to also do some other things, is what that is. And then next up, I'm going to show you the healing one that I'm making. And that one is going to be a self-healing one, like working through emotional things, working through mental blocks, working through self-sabotaging behaviors, that kind of vibes. So you're going to see me name a lot of ingredients that help with those things, okay? So for the last spell jar that I did, this specifically is a emotional healing jar. And one of the reasons why it's so important that you're specific with what you want your spells to do is there are lots of different forms of healing. So if I had just made this a regular healing jar and just put things to heal in there, it could have been a little bit random with what exactly it's healing. You know, there's mental healing, there's physical healing, there's spiritual healing. So there's a lot of different types of healing that can be going on, and some herbs and some crystals work best for different types of healing, you know. So it's important that you are specific with what you're trying to do. And in this one specifically, there are a couple of different types of crystals in here. I put magnesite and peridot. I have a emotional healing oil, so I put that in here also. Nettle to help create enforce boundaries, and a little bit of eucalyptus, mostly because I'm a fan of eucalyptus, but it also helps build resilience and strength. So this one specifically looks a little different than the other ones. It has a screw top, and the main reason why this one looks different than the other ones is because there is oil in this one, you know, like there is a type of liquid. And the little jars that have the cork tops do not do well with liquids. Those liquids will eventually spill out and make a mess all over the place, which is why this one has a screw top. So that's just a little sneak peek of some of the spells that I do, how to do them, some of the ingredients that I put in them. And like I said earlier, for these, I am going to be putting them on my altar and just allowing them to absorb some of that energy, you know, charge them. And there are multiple different ways to charge crystals. You can put them, I'm sorry, not just crystals. There are multiple different ways to charge things. You can put it in your hands and just charge them with your own energy. You can use singing bowls to help charge them. You could just ask your ancestors and spirit guides to help charge them. So there are a lot of different ways to charge something. I'm a fan of asking my ancestors to help, so I will put it on my altar and just let my ancestors help me infuse this with the right intentions. So hopefully that helped you guys, that gave you guys some useful information, and I hope everyone has a beautiful, amazing